All right, everyone. It's Tim. It's New York Giants Straight Talk, powered by Online Big Blue LLC. Also found on the Believe Network, because you have to believe. We're doing our rival review segment, of course. We've had the Commanders, we've had the Cowboys. Now we're bringing in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia sports voice legend, and of course that is Howard Eskin. Howard's been on the scene for decades. He has covered the good, the bad, and the ugly at times with the Eagles and of course the Phillies and some other teams that we don't like to talk about because we are New York fans. And Howard, I just wanted to personally thank you for coming on. It is a pleasure and an honor to have you on the show, talking a little bit about you, a little bit of history, and a little bit about the Eagles.
Well, talk whatever you want to talk. I mean, any BS you want, anything you want to roll in there, I'm fine with.
Everyone knows we have tons of BS on this show.
Yeah.
You have been in the Philadelphia landscape for decades, like I mentioned before. And growing up listening to you, I have a question about a Leonard Toe story. And this goes back to 1982, where towards the end of the year of 82, you broke the story that Leonard Toe was in financial difficulty because of some gambling allegations. And that interview, I mean, that story was then picked up in 83 in the beginning of January with Sports Illustrated. And there was talk that you technically, or maybe not even indirectly, helped prevent him from selling the team and potentially relocating them.
Well, I think it was more I helped prevent, and I didn't say that. A producer at Channel 3, when I was at Channel 3, and I broke the story when I was working for Channel 3 in Philadelphia. I'm not sure if they were, I think they were NBC at the time. They might have been CBS, but I think they were NBC, but whatever. It was a local Channel 3 in Philadelphia. And and they're not gambling allegations. He was a big time gambler.
Well,
He was just,
I was just trying to be nice.
yeah, smoker and a drinker, but that's all right. But uh, he, from what I was told, and I had good information, he bet all 7 hands at the blackjack table, and he lost so much money gambling that he had to. Uh, I mean, he was. I can't say he was broke. Anybody that owns a team, you still have an asset. So he's he was going to move it to Arizona. I guess at the time Arizona didn't have it. It was 1982. It was kind of I guess it was after it was. I forget when it was. It was January of 1982, and or January of 1983 at the end of the 82 season. I started TV in 82. It was like 3 months after I got into television. And his debt became so great, he was forced to sell the team. But before he sold it or tried to sell it, he tried to move to Arizona. And I put that out there. And then people went crazy. And obviously that stopped. And then he sold the team, signing a deal on napkins in Atlantic City. It was a group of people. One of them was an attorney who I got to know very well. They weren't happy with me that, I put all this out there. And there was a story that came out after I broke the story. The Inquirer, the newspaper here, was duped, saying, well, he's selling part of the team for estate planning reasons. Well, he had a heart bypass 10 years before that. All of a sudden, he's estate planning. So in the end, one thing led to another. And he eventually sold the team to a person named Norman Brayman because he just he didn't have the money and he had to sell it. And he had his daughter run the financial part with the bank because he owed the bank so much money. Again, you have an asset. So to handle that debt, he had to sell the team. But in the end, he sold the team. He was a nice man, but he didn't know how to handle money. Very nice guy. But he was what he was and just tried to have fun. And in the end, he wasn't mad at me after that. He understood that what I said was right. I know his granddaughter very well, which is interesting. His daughter, who passed away not too long ago, she didn't like me at the time, but she got to like me afterwards because they all knew when people know that you're not just going out there throwing, crap up against the wall. you're trying to be straight and legitimate, and that's what I was. And I think they really accepted that. So that was my first big story on television. Now I had stories on radio. Uh, I just I thought it was fun to break stories because it's a sense of accomplishment. On talk radio, and today is so much different than the way it used to be. I like to inform and entertain, and I think you can do both with legitimate information. So I did a lot of that. And I broke a lot of stories, but that was my first big story in television 3 months after I went into TV. Interesting that, and I didn't break the story. My first day in television was September 20th, 1982. I never worked TV in my life, so I was scared to death. And Channel 3 wanted to hire me because I had something to say. I broke a lot of stories, and they hired me. In my first day, the NFL players called a strike, and I can still see the clock in my head up on the wall. There was only a 6 o'clock news. 5:09, the NFL players called a strike. So that was the lead story, and I was the lead story of my first day in television, which is kind of cool. There's a lot of different little things that happened to me, but it's kind of cool, and it relaxed me because I had to start working on it. And I went on the air and I just started talking to people like I did on the radio, and just happened to be a camera in front of me, and I just did what I do. So it was kind of an interesting start to my television career, but I had already been in radio for quite a while, and not at WIP. I was at an FM station before that, and I went from the FM station to TV, and then WIP happened in 1986 when I did the first sports talk show there.
There have been many moments in Giant Eagles history. A lot of
Yep.
a lot of younger fans will remember Matt Dodge kicking it into the middle of the field to Deshaun Jackson. I remember the miracle of the Meadowlands. I was there. Pisarcik should have taken a knee. There was no way and I understand he ran the play that was called, but there was no way they should have handed off that ball. I've met Herm Edwards a bunch of times, and I've told him every single time that I've met him that you still give me nightmares to this day. Do you have it? I know you were there on that fateful day. Do you have any special insight that we may not, as fans, know
All right,
about?
let me address the first part of the question. Joe Pisarcik handing the football off. I had Herm Edwards on my podcast, which is available on all the social media networks, and if you subscribe to YouTube, it'll notify you when I'm on. About a week ago, and he told me the story behind that play. And because Pisarcik came to the Eagles the following year
Yep.
and told them the whole thing. So all the players in the huddle said, you got to take a knee. The play before that play, they did take a knee. They took a knee. There was no timeouts left for the Eagles. So if they took a knee, the game would have been over. But Pisarcik and Herm told me that Pisarcik told him that the week before, Joe Pisarcik ran a play that wasn't called by the coach, and he got reamed out by the coach. So the coach told him, anytime I call a play, you run the play. And the coach, for whatever reason, an idiot, I think it was Alex Webster. I'm not sure who the coach was at that time who called the play. But I was there as well, which was kind of interesting. I kind of started doing sports full time the year before, and that was in 1978. I started doing sports in 76. So full time. I was in radio before that. But he told me, Joe Pisarcik told the guys in the huddle, you've got to run the play. Or the guys in the huddle said, don't run that play. I got to run the play. The coach called it. And Larry Zonka said, don't run the play. And then there was, I forget the back that was on the edge that Herm told me was there. He thought it was going to be a kneel down. So he didn't even block Herm coming in. So Herm had a free ride to the football. So, so he gets the football, but Joe ran the play that the coach called. And then Zonka hits his hip and knocks the football out because nobody in the huddle wanted to run a play. Joe said, I got to run the play. And then another part of that story, which doesn't concern the Giants, Dick Vermeil, who was the coach, and Dick never told me this, and I talk to Dick a lot these days, and he turned around to his players and he said, "Hey, we might be able to get a play here. We might be able to get a play." And he's talking to the players about getting a play. All of a sudden, he sees his back's to the play when it happened. All of a sudden, he sees the players running out. He says, "What are you guys running out for?" He says, "Herm just scored a touchdown on a fumble." He never saw the play live. So he was trying to get ready for what could have been, he thought might have been another play for the offense. It's unbelievable, that whole thing. But, that's the story that Herm told me, which I had never heard, that Joe was basically shamed into running the play because he didn't do it the week before, run play that the coach called. And that opened up the door because everybody else on offense thought he was just going to kneel on the ball. It's unbelievable. Stupidity for the Giants, but they've had a lot of it. So
listen, I'm not going to lie to you. We have, because running the play that was called, I go back to Matt Dodge. Matt Dodge was told by Tom Coughlin, do not kick the ball in the middle of the field. Whatever you do not do it. So what does Matt Dodge? What does 1 year wonder Matt Dodge do? Kicks the ball in the middle of the field. And to this day, I still have, I was at that game. I have nightmares of Deshaun Jackson dropping the ball, going the wrong way. And then all of a sudden I remember telling people in the stands, we're done. We're done. And that was another heartbreaking moment. In the reverse though, what do you think is probably the best Eagle moment against the Giants that you've seen in your entire career?
Well, it's really hard to choose between the Miracle in the Meadowlands, as they call it here, number one, the Brian Westbrook punt return, number two, and then the Deshaun Jackson, which won the game, but there was still time left to play the game on that one, and Deshaun Jackson. All right, a couple of things on the Deshaun Jackson. I was told by a player in the Giants locker room who was there when Dick Coughlin came up to Matt Dodge and said, "I'm going to cut your ass. You're done. You're done." So I went on the air the next day and I told that story. And their PR guy, who I don't know if he's with Cleveland now. I think he's not with the Giants anymore. Called me and said, "Well, that's not true." I said, "I know it's true. The player told me. I know it's true. I know you're trying to stop all the heat and all the nonsense, but it's true." So whatever. So he called me to try to, cover the back of Tom Coughlin and the team. So that's the first part of that story. He basically told him he was going to cut him. And, I was told, no, he didn't say that. And he didn't cut him at the time. The second part of that story, Deshaun Jackson and I would talk. I was at practice every day. And I said, you don't have a punt return this year. I said, you tell me, beginning of the season, you told me you'd get two punt returns, a punt return for a touchdown. You don't have any. You told me you get two. He says, "Okay, I'll get one for you this week." So he told me that during practice. Obviously, he didn't know he was going to get a punt return. Who knows it's going to be on the last play? So he gets he gets the punt return, and he comes up to me, and I have a picture interviewing him right after the game, and he's laughing. He said, I told you I was going to get a punt return." And there's so many great pictures of that. There's a picture where somebody shot an angle. You see all the Giants players lined up chasing him.
I've actually seen that.
And then Coughlin's on the sidelines ready to slam down his pad, his clipboard. So he's ready to slam it down. There's so many great things about that. But I guess because Herm Edwards was on the last play, I don't know if there was time on the clock, but Deshaun Jackson was on the last play. And those are great moments. Actually, I enjoyed when the Giants lose Super Bowls, and I know they've won Super Bowl.
We only lost one.
Okay, I actually rooted for them when they beat the Patriots and Bill Belichick because I didn't like I didn't like the Patriots. I didn't like Belichick. And that was Eli Manning, and I called him Sheeli because he always went down before the rusher got to him on a sack. I called him, and Sheeli knows that I busted his chops. I saw him when Michael Strahan got his number retired, and I'm friends with Michael because he used to watch me on Channel 3, believe it or not, in the off season because he had a home in the Poconos, and they used to get the station. He saw me at the Super Bowl in 2002. He says, I know you. I says, I don't know how you know. You can't know me. I'm from Philadelphia. I'm a sportscaster. And he goes, I know. I always watched you on Channel 3. I had a home in the Poconos. So it was kind of cool. And then we got together and we became friends after that. I stay in touch with him. I check on his daughter, which is a great story that it seems like she's beat the cancer, for the time. And I keep on rooting for him. He's such a good guy. But I saw Eli at that game lined up with the other players. And I went up to introduce myself. I said, I know who you are. But I always rooted against, and they had a guy there that got all over me when I called him Sheeli at the game the next day. We almost had a fight. Who was the top PR guy? He might be retired now. Oh, I forget his name, but he came after me on the field before the game. How dare you, with Eli Manning. But Eli, I know, is a good guy, whatever. But so I rooted for him when they beat the Patriots. And he wasn't the MVP. Somebody on that defense was the MVP.
Yeah, we've actually talked about that. The David Tyree catch does not make you the MVP of the game. The defense is what literally kept them in and stymied Tom Brady.
Well, it was 10. Was it 10-10 until the last minute when he threw the touchdown pass with a minute to go to Plexiglass Barracks. Yeah. So it's just. So I have names for all these guys, but I've had Plaxico on my show. Good guy. I don't know what he's doing now, but so that was big. But the defense, Tom Brady, Ron Jaworski told me when he looked at the films at NFL Films, he said Brady had no time to throw the football. That pass rush was so incredible because the Giants secondary was just an average secondary.
Yes,
but the pass rush was so great. That's what won that. Eli wasn't the MVP, but the writers make it easy because it's another Manning. It's just another Manning. So you gotta have a Manning as the MVP, which was ridiculous. Meanwhile, Eli, I don't think is a Hall of Famer, and people in New York would argue with me. And the reason I don't is he only had a 500 record in his career. And he had more losing seasons than winning seasons. I know he won two Super Bowl MVPs? Mm-hmm. Okay, yes. Or 2 Super Bowls. But nonetheless, I just don't. A guy with a 500 record shouldn't be an MVP. I know he's got numbers, but it's a team game. I don't think, and somebody from the Hall of Fame told me they didn't think but the person that told me doesn't think that he's a Hall of Fame, but he'll get in the Hall of Fame because he's got the right last name. His brother didn't have a great record in the playoffs either.
Oh no. There was always talk and consideration that Peyton, he was the choke artist in the playoffs, and until he finally got over that hump.
Yep.
Going into this year, the 2025 season with the Eagles and the Giants. I mean, of course, the Eagles reached the pinnacle last year. They've been to 3 Super Bowls in 7 seasons. They seem to be set up for success this year again. You have most of your starters returning on offense. I believe they lost 5 starters on the defensive end, but Howie's always drafting, how he always finds guys. I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he manages the cap for Philadelphia, but expectations need to be high in the Philadelphia area because I live in Pennsylvania, so I know it. What do you think the Eagles? What do you think they're? I mean, with taking a look at the schedule they have, and everyone has the same schedule. You're going to tell me they got 2 gimmies against the Giants. I know that. But looking at what they have right now, the pieces they have in place and what they've done in the offseason, what can Philadelphia Eagle fans and Giant fans expect from this team? Because, sometimes you hit that Super Bowl high and you have the next season lull.
That's the only thing that I would be concerned about because the players are having a good time in the offseason. And they have a bunch of young players having a good time. The fact that they've never experienced this is different. Getting to a Super Bowl is hard. Getting to back-to-back Super Bowls, and Kansas City gets there because they had the best quarterback and they have the best coach probably all time in football, and Andy Reid. Andy Reid's a great coach. I don't even have Belichick in the top 6 or 7 of all time coaches, but that's another story. He had Tom Brady. He didn't win without Tom Brady. It's just, but Kansas City got there and they had the team, but every year a Super Bowl team loses players because you can't keep them all. So you've got to draft well. Kansas City, the Eagles spend more money on dead money, years that no players will never play. They're tied with somebody, I forget what other team, and I saw it probably a month ago, tied with another team as the leader in signing players to money that they know they're going to stretch it out and pay it, but it's dead money. Kansas City doesn't do that. I had Andy Reid on last week on my podcast, and he says, we just kind of slid it in there. We don't do that. But you got to draft good players to replace those players because they know they're going to lose players every year, and it's going to happen. But if you have young players that you have under contract for a while, and the Eagles do, Carter is good. Jordan Davis says he's going to get in shape. So Davis, that's good. Their defensive line really, and the secondary is actually good, but that's an area we'll see what happens this year. But the pass rush is so good. The offensive line might be the best in football. The 2 receivers are 2 of the best in football. And the Giants' stupidity, and I don't know that Saquon Barkley was going to come back there, but Joe Shane looked like an absolute fool on Hard Knocks. Hard Knocks is not good for TV.
We did not do us any favors.
It's just, give us a call back. Well, why would I give you a call back after you get an? No, what he's kind of from the Philadelphia area, so I think he wanted to come to the Eagles, and without Saquon Barkley, they wouldn't have gotten to a Super Bowl because it allows Jalen Hurts to not have to throw the ball that much, which cuts down any chance for interceptions. And the running game kind of changed everything. So to get back again, the Eagles didn't have injuries, pretty much no injuries. Injuries are a big part of the game. So if they get by without that, the only player that's older on the offensive line is Lane Johnson, who might be the best right tackle in football. If he's not, he's one of the top 2 or 3. And, he's older. He's been hurt a little bit a couple of times. And I think it was last year or the year before he missed some games. But the Eagles always try to get depth on the offensive and defensive line. The Eagles are very good. Schedule's tough. Teams are going to come after you. It's just not going to be the same, and it's going to be tougher. Are they good enough to get to the Super Bowl? Absolutely. So, and here I'm just going to, and maybe Giants fans do or don't realize this. When some people say, well, the Giants, they have a shot. The Giants are closer to the last team in the division than they are the first team in the division. So it's the Eagles and Washington. Washington's going to be really good. Jaden Daniels, the quarterback for Washington, I can't call them the Commanders. It's such a foolish nickname. But the Washington football team, Herm Edwards had him his first 2 years in college. I didn't realize that.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, he had him his first 2 years. And then when Herm left Arizona State, he transferred. So he got out when you didn't have the transfer portal, but you were allowed when your coach left. So Herm thinks Washington's going to be really, really good, and they are going to because they have a quarterback. The owner is really a loser, but he's got good people making decisions for him in Washington, where he's got a complete con man and a loser running things for the 76ers in Philadelphia. So Sixers will never win. Never. And you could be 30 years old. They're not going to win in your lifetime either. But the reality, hey, listen, they haven't won a championship since the 83-84
I would say it was the 83 season.
Yeah, right. So the reality is, but Washington's going to be really good. So it's the way I look at it, Eagles, Washington, Dallas, and then Giants. Is there anybody else in the division?
Nope.
Okay. One team has 5, but so hard to keep track because the NFL
Well, I know when we
change all these
lost the
things.
St. Louis Cardinals, I still miss Neil Lomax and the Cardinals.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's just the St. Louis Cardinals are the Arizona Cardinals.
That's right.
Which is amazing. They moved a couple times. They won. You forget they won. They won a Super Bowl in St. Louis. Was that St. Louis that won the Super Bowl?
That was the Rams.
That was the Rams. Okay, it was the St. Louis Rams. It wasn't the Cardinals. Yeah, St. Louis Rams. And Dick Vermeil was the coach, and Kurt Warner was the quarterback.
Yep.
So, but the Giants are just. I know they got a great defensive player out of Penn State. They're going to need more than that. They got to do something with the offensive line. Let me just, and I've got to. The quarterback situation is a joke. Now, will Jackson Dart be a good quarterback? He may be, but I can't believe he's going to be a good quarterback his rookie year. So you're going to go with Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. And is Tommy DeVito, is he still there?
Tommy DeVito is still there.
Okay. Russell Wilson is a fraud. And let me just tell you.
Okay.
He's a fraud. And he's a fraud for a lot of reasons. When he was with Seattle, the fact that he threw that interception was a disgrace. Well, and Pete Carroll allowing that play to be a pass. You got to see the defenders right there. But he was not good in the red zone because of his size. But with Seattle, they were good because that defense was great. And he always had good field position. And then he bounced around to other teams, and then he has his own office in Denver. I'll give you a story about Russell Wilson. The last time that Seattle played in Philadelphia, I think it was a playoff game. They won the game. First of all, he makes the players wait forever because he's the last one to always come out of the locker room. And there's always food, as you've probably seen, outside the locker room. The guys eat, and then there's food on the plane. He did not like the food that I guess he checks it, that they had on the plane. So he was Russell Wilson, made the plane wait until they sent out for other food to bring on the plane. Remember, they're flying back to Seattle. That's like a 6-hour.
Yeah, it's not a short. Flight. It's not a short trip.
Yeah, right. And he made the plane wait. Then he has an office in Denver. I mean, Sean Payton realized this is a joke. He's all about himself, and he's a good quarterback. He wasn't a great quarterback, but you got Russell Wilson. Good luck with him. Jameis Winston, another backup quarterback. It's just so. What do the Giants have? They just don't have a quarterback yet this year. And it might be Joe Shane's last year after the way he's put this team together. I don't think the owner's going to put up with another losing season. And what are the Giants? Are the Giants going to win 7 games this year? Maybe. But they're closer to last place than they are first place. And I'm not a big Dallas Cowboys fan because their quarterback's no good either. That's a joke. He's so overrated. It's a disgrace. But whatever. So it's the Eagles and Washington in the division. But it's going to be the playoffs too. Detroit had injuries. I don't know if Detroit would have beaten the Eagles in the playoffs if they didn't have injuries, but they would have been a team playing the Eagles. So it's all good for the Eagles, but it's going to be a tough season.
You mentioned the red zone of Russell Wilson earlier. The tush push was up for league review in reference to possibly being outlawed, we'll say. And I've always said that if anyone could do it, they would do it. The Giants have tried to do it on multiple occasions. They couldn't do it. Teams have tried it in multiple different ways. It's not only it's the personnel, it's the team, it's the mindset, it's the quarterback that makes it work. I mean, do you find it a little inane and crazy that people are like, we have to get rid of this play because only one team could do it? Well, maybe that one team can do it because they know how to do it and they have the personnel to do it.
Well, remember this, and it was at least 15 years ago, maybe even longer. There was a rule in football. You could not push a player who carried the football. Somehow they eliminated that, and Jalen Hurts does get pushed a lot of times on that play. One of the players that really makes that work is Landon Dickerson, who's the guard, because he's so big. I mean, you can't. Once he starts pushing you, and then people pushing from behind, that's just too much weight. It's really difficult to stop. So it's not a football play. I didn't care one way or the other. If they got rid of the play, they got rid of the play, or they made it illegal. They got rid of the play. But what happened to the rule where you weren't allowed to push a ball carrier? And Jalen Hurts obviously is the ball carrier. Push a ball carrier from behind. Push him or pull him. Pull him. I understand. I don't think.
Right.
I don't. I still think you can do that. But it's not a football play. Just run a football play. So Jalen Hurts gets a lot of touchdowns, which when you're a yard out, when everybody's pushing him in there. But he's strong enough. The offensive line is really good, and the play, for whatever reason, works, and for whatever reason, other teams don't run it as well. I mean, Josh Allen's a big guy for the Buffalo Bills. I don't know. I think they've tried it, and it's not as successful.
No, it's not
with them. But I love Josh Allen as a quarterback too. One of these days, and Sean McDermott, I'd love to see him get to the Super Bowl. I mean, Sean, I still stay in touch with. Sean's a good guy, and I think he's a good coach. And I think Buffalo is right there. Kansas City wasn't the best team last year to get to the Super Bowl in the AFC. I think Buffalo and Baltimore were better. And John Harbaugh is a great coach, and his quarterback's playing a lot better than I ever thought he could play. So there's going to be some teams there. But as far as the NFC, I can't identify anybody yet because you got to see a little bit. But there's going to be somebody that jumps out of the pack. Don't forget about the Rams. I think Sean McVay is a terrific coach. I think Nick Sirianni's a terrific coach. Everybody gets on him for his emotion. I don't care. I love a coach with emotion. Andy Reid's the exact opposite. But Andy Reid said players thrive off of the emotion of Nick Sirianni. So he does that, and he's very emotional on the sideline. That's okay. I have no problem with that as long as he does his job. Very creative. The players, it's hard to get a coach to get players to respect and love the coach. They may respect him, they may love him, but it's hard to get both. And the Eagles the players have both for Nick Sirianni, and that they have both for Andy Reid. And that's coach has got to get the players to play for him because it's the players that play the game. But I think Sirianni is a very, very, very good coach.
You actually took my Sirianni question away, but I want a Saquon Barkley question. Game 17, potentially going for the NFL single season rushing record. Of course, he has it in reference to the regular season and the playoffs. There was speculation and talk that he wanted to go for it, but Sirianni said no. And then Saquon, being the good soldier, said, no, I don't want to go for it. But then there was rumors that he did really want to go for it. Any behind the scenes information in reference to what really went on with that discussion for potentially getting that coveted record?
You know what? Saquon Barkley seems like a really good guy. He is a really good guy, but he seems like he's a really good guy. And no, I believe that it's about the team. It's really about the team. People are going to forget about the records. I mean, when Saquon Barkley rushed for over 2,000 yards, how many people remember Eric Dickerson? The best running back ever in football. Is it Gale Sayers? I only saw Gale a little bit when I was a kid. I mean, I don't remember enough of Gale Sayers. Walter Payton was a great back. Hey, Walter Payton should be pissed, and he was pissed when they had the offense.
When they gave Refrigerator Perry the ball in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, right. I mean, come on now. It's just it's Walter Payton, and it's given the football. Walter is may he rest in peace, was wonderful and a great back. So people forget over time. Records are made to be broken, and somebody else, especially when they go to 18 games. Remember, it's a 17-game season now, so things are different. And there were records when it was a 14-game season, when it was a 16-game season. So it's just the season. So records, what's a record? Like, big deal. It's winning. You're remembered. People remember Saquon Barkley because he was on a Super Bowl champion. Are they going to remember that he rushed for 2,000 yards? Eventually, no. They know he's a really good back. But the offensive line also makes that work because once he gets to the second level, really difficult to tackle or to catch or whatever. And you got to get to the second level, and that offensive line gets him to the second level. So there's a lot of things. But Saquon Barkley, I believe, really is about the team and not about personal goal.
The 18 game schedule, to go back to a pro league with 18 games, you go to the USFL, you go to the Philadelphia Stars and Chuck Facina, Kelvin Bryant, and all those guys. And I loved the USFL going as a kid because I loved watching the Jersey Generals. But the 18 game schedule just seems to be. I know they've shortened the preseason, but it just seems to be too much. I mean, I love football and I'll watch football all day long, but do you have any sense, that we definitely are going to an 18 game schedule? If there is going to be something that's going to come down with the Players Association with the new collective bargaining agreement once that 18 game schedule happens, because I mean, you hear some of the players talk, they don't like 17 games, and so 18 games isn't going to be much better unless there's some kind of revenue sharing or something is done with the contracts.
Well, mark it down. There will be an 18 game season.
Oh, yeah.
There's no question. The players are going to get more money, and that's all they care about is the money. And there's going to be times practices are restricted. There's a lot of teams that do. I know the Eagles don't practice with pads a lot during the season, not as much as they used to. And so that's going to change. There's going to probably be additional players added to the roster that more players will make money. It'll get done because players in the NFL cave because it's about money. It's a short career and they want the money. The NFL wants the money. That's why there's going to be 18 games. That's why you don't even know where a game is broadcast anymore. Is it going to be on Amazon? Is it going to be on YouTube? Is it going to be which network? It's a joke. It really is a joke, but it's all about money. And as long as everybody's making money, then people are going to be happy. The players will resist a little bit. Some players will resist who probably already have the money, but there's going to be games that probably they're not going to play who's going to play all 18 games? It's going to be tough. So, but as long as they get the money, I think that's what it comes down to. So I don't think of all the players unions, well, I'll say all. The NBA probably has, I don't know if it's the strongest because those players run the league. The NBA, that's why the NBA is a joke. The NBA is a broken product and it really is bad. Baseball, players don't run it, but they get guaranteed contracts, so they're happy. But the NFL players are probably the weakest of the players' unions because the players cave, and they'll cave because they're going to get more money. 18 games. I wouldn't be surprised. This season is what, 25. You forget what year it is. 25, 26. I kind of think there's going to be an 18 game season in 26. But that might just be me. Not hard to throw another game in. And it just, what's so hard about that? You just throw another game in. More revenue. It's all about the TV revenue. And they're going to have games overseas every week of the season, somewhere overseas, which I think is a joke. To play in Australia, and I think next year they're probably going to play in Australia. To have an East Coast team fly 20 some hours to play a football game is a joke. But the Eagles are probably going to be the team. If there's a game in Australia, one of the teams, because they have a player who played rugby over there.
That's right. And I have no problem sending the Eagles 23 and a half hours over to Australia.
Yeah, right. I know you
back. And hopefully they play the Giants next week and they don't get a bye.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
You know what? The Giants could have 3 byes in a row and they'll still lose to the Eagles.
Right now, yeah, listen, Philadelphia's got the Giants number a little bit right now, but there was a day there was, and it wasn't back in Parcells, there was a day not too long ago where Philadelphia was kind of in the same boat that the Giants are in. But 3 Super Bowls in 7 years. I always laugh when people talk about dynasties, and I'm not saying Philadelphia's a dynasty, but you start going through that, and you did it with 2 different coaching regimes, so it's not like it's
it's really hard.
It's not easy, and like you mentioned before, it's hard enough to get to the Super Bowl, let alone win it.
Yep, really hard.
Outside of I just wanted to step away from football for a second because, like I said, you have been covering Philadelphia forever and all sports. It's not like you're just covering the Eagles. And like I said, I grew up listening to you, like I said, for that, as a kid, and you're always the voice in our house at one point in time. But what is your favorite Philadelphia sports moment that you were a part of or just in general?
Well, the Eagles winning that first Super Bowl, to me, standing on the sidelines as a sideline reporter at that time, and what a great game. I saw Roger Goodell the next year at the league meetings. He said it might have been the greatest game, Super Bowl game in NFL history at that time. It was back and forth and back and forth. And the offense, I mean, I think the Patriots had 600 yards in offense. Yeah. The Eagles had 500 and some yards in offense. Nick Foles comes out of nowhere. And it just comes down to the last play. So in the end, that's probably the 80 World Series for the Phillies. And I still know a lot of those guys. Was really my moment because it was my first World Series champion in Philadelphia, and covering that team for years. I've covered the teams in Philadelphia for close to 5 decades. I can't even believe that because I started full time in '76. But that's probably that Super Bowl, the World Series, that moment as far as a game. I've had interviews which have been really cool. I had Muhammad Ali on the air when he was still a boxer, still boxing training in Pennsylvania, a place called, I think it was called Deer Lake, and had him on the air on my talk show. And he was Muhammad Ali, and I met him like 3 times. So he was really, really a good guy. I mean, athletes are different nowadays than they used to. There's some really nice ones, but so that was really cool. There's so many great moments, but the one thing that I always try to do is tell the truth, not make up stories, which is totally the case on sports talk radio these days. Totally the case. They just make things up, and that's why you have 2 guys: good cop, bad cop, good cop, bad cop. Just fight with each other. It's just over, and fight, debate, whatever. But I really am proud of the fact that I did it the right way, which was successful. The right way, as far as I'm concerned. There is no right or wrong anymore. Players would listen. Mike Krukow, I don't know if you remember him. He was a pitcher for the Phillies. He's now a broadcaster with the San Francisco Giants.
Yeah.
I went on the air the night before on TV and mentioned a trade that I was told was going to happen the next day. And Mike Krukow got a call the next morning. He said he didn't even have to pick up the phone because he saw me on TV announce the trade to tell people about the trade. He said, I knew I was traded. He'll tell the story. I knew I was traded before I even picked up the phone because he saw it on TV. Ryan Sandberg, I blew up the first trade that the Phillies had. Ryan Sandberg became a Cub because I went on the air, called Larry Boa during a break. I said, so you're going to get a new contract? No, they're going to trade me to the Cubs. I said, what? And he said, so can you come on the air? Yep. So I put him on the air. And they were trading him for Ivan De Jesus, who was a shortstop.
Yep.
And the Cubs fans went nuts, and they called off the trade. Phillies were pissed. They called off the trade. So they reworked the trade a few weeks later, and the Phillies threw Ryan Sandberg into the trade. So if, in fact, I didn't go on the air with Boa, Ryan Sandberg probably would have never become a Chicago Cub. So it's kind of an interesting story. So different things that I've done and broken stories. I'm proud of that. I'm just proud of just doing it the way I did it, and had fun doing it. And who knew that after that, the general manager from WIP at the time said, will you do sports talk in the afternoon? I had done it before on FM, another FM station, because I want to turn this station into a sports talk station. I said, yeah, sure, because I only did a 10 o'clock news. I went to Channel 29, which was now Fox. But I said, yeah, I'll do it. So I did it in the afternoon. The station, for a lot of reasons, became successful. And, who knows? I'm where I am today. So it's all good. It's all good.
It's all good. And
you know what? The other thing is radio, and I just do podcasts now. And the radio business is really in trouble because more and more people are listening to podcasts. More and more people, or less and less people, are listening to radio. And on a podcast, the advertisers that I have, their commercials live forever.
Yeah.
On a radio station, if they podcast
Ran
the
once.
show, they take the commercials out and sell new commercials. So it's all good. It's all good. I'm having fun, and that's what it's all about.
Do you want to let everyone know the name of the pod?
Well, it's the Howard Eskin Show. Just go if you go to YouTube and just put in the Howard Eskin Show, they'll come up. All of them will come up, but they're pinned for a week on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Amazon Music, Spotify, and Apple. Spotify, Apple, and Amazon are just audio. The others are video audio. But yeah, the Howard Eskin Show, if you just put that in there, you'll be able to see them. And I've had some really great guests. I mean, between Barkley and Dick Vermeil, who didn't like me at first. We've done it. We had fun on it. Brandon Graham, who obviously is the big name here in Philadelphia. I go to Eric Allen when he was voted into the Hall of Fame. I've stayed in touch with Eric, and good luck to him when he gets inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So I've had a lot of guys, and there's going to be a lot more that I'm going to have on. So it's just fun talking to guys, and it's a conversation, not an interview. It's a conversation. I'm just BSing with the guys. That's all.
Well, I want to like I said, I actually have a Charles Barkley story, but I don't think I can completely tell it because I was there. There was an incident he had at the Church Street station in Orlando, which actually I was there. So we've told the story before about the round mound to rebound because he's actually one of my favorite players. But I do, Howard, want to thank you for coming on today. Make sure everyone goes and follows Howard on the podcast. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. We're going to put your podcast link in the description, both on the YouTube channel and on the Believe Network. And like we always do for every guest, and you've been so eloquent about it, do you have anything you would like to just say, just any parting notes before we close it out?
Well, I can't say the Giants suck because I've already kind of, that property and that name goes to the Dallas Cowboys here in Philadelphia. The Cowboys suck. But, a good luck to the Giants. But I don't know how you get out of last place. I just don't know how you do it. So not a good thing, but no, I appreciate it. And I appreciate all the people that over years have either watched me or listened to me or whatever the case may be. I'm just going to always be honest. As Allen Iverson said, he said many things. I'm going to keep it for real, for real. And that's what I've always wanted to do. And I've always done. Allen Iverson at the time didn't like me. Now he hugs me every time he sees me. But they understand, players understand that you're only doing your job. So, but I just appreciate everybody out there, and thank you.
And once again, this is Tim, this New York Giants Straight Talk, powered by Online Big Blue LLC on the Believe Network. Also found everywhere on YouTube. Again, this is Tim. This is Howard Eskin, wishing everyone a great day. And like I said, like, subscribe, and follow, and ring those notifications. And thanks, guys. We are out of here.